Hey lady, how are you doing? So today I wanted to touch on something about tidying from tots to teens, how I ended up dealing with it. Having a few too many all in the house, different ages, from young to older. So one thing I learned over time, and really and truly that's what we all do, is we just learn as we go and what worked and what didn't work. And all I can do is tell you what I did and what I learned that worked for me. Some things might not work for you, but what worked for me, and it might sound a little bit general, but some of it is a little more practical and not taking it too far. So, one thing, if I were going back in time and thinking about when I needed to just tidy up the house, and I had 7 kids, 7 and under, you know, whatever the ages are for your kids, you'll play around with it and find out what works for you. But one thing I would think of is take into account the age of the child you're assigning whatever task to, and can they handle it? And I'll make like a little side note on this one. Most of the time, all of us can handle something more than what we think we can handle, but that doesn't necessarily mean that certain types of household chores or things like that might be appropriate for whoever it is you have in your house. Some of your kids might be more careful with doing the dishes, and others might be more able to handle something different. So, taking into account the ages of who you're assigning the task to. Another thing, even though some of the kids got older, even as adults, we don't want too many things to be told to us at one time. And I know for me, I don't necessarily make it into a game, but it ends up being a little bit of a rhyme or a rhythm or a game. And that's to stick with the number 3. Maybe they had some psychology behind Dora, I don't know. But if you say 3 things, even to yourself, but especially to a kid, they can usually remember the 3 things. And depending on their age and how much they can handle what you're assigning them. So it would be, like a younger child, you might want them to do several things, but maybe you only need to tell them the first thing to do. Put your blocks in this basket. There you go. They take their blocks, they put them in that basket. Second thing, take the basket, put it on the shelf. So it takes more time and more attention, but that's how they learn to go in sequence. And then they'll, of course they'll get older and they'll be able to just handle, okay, do this, do this, do this. And then let me know. And then you have to follow up on it. Sometimes that's the hardest thing, is you actually have to follow up and see if they did it. And then if not, then, fix it, or you move on, depending on your day and your situation. Another thing to think about, well, for me, was the time. So sometimes I would want to tidy and I want it to be completely done, everything done. Well, in order for everything to be done, it needs to take maybe more time than everybody has a bandwidth for at the moment. And again, it depends on your day and your children in the house, their ages, and what you have going on as priority for the day. If I wanted everything done, I didn't just want it tidy, I wanted it clean, and I wanted it, orderly. I wanted the extra things that didn't get done last time, I wanted them done. You just have to figure out what's the most important and start from there. And as far as time goes, For me, what worked is either a 2-minute or 10-minute. And I mean, honestly, I still will do this today. And my kids are older. I'll do it for myself. So I'll just take 2 minutes, or I'll take 10 minutes and I'll do a tidy. So a 2-minute tidy, a 10-minute tidy, and then it's like a race. And it's not necessarily something I want to sit there and enjoy. Sometimes you could do that, just like enjoy the process, and other times you just want it done. So depending on my day, it could be a 10-minute, it could be a 2-minute, and usually that is a little more tolerable for younger kids and children that have different attention spans. Another thing that I would do is usually I had music on, and it depended on how quick I wanted it to get done. So the faster the music, usually that was kind of like part of the race, is to have faster music playing and wanting to have things done in a quicker sense. And usually I'm a little partial to music anyway. I'm very much a music person, but especially for kids that, they're not there to want to enjoy it. They just want it done, because really what we all want is to do what we want. And that's where I will bring in the next one in, and that is to tell them the overall order. And that is, we're going to do this for this long. This is what has to happen. Maybe the 3 things. And then a treat. And I don't mean, junk food or anything like that. I mean, like, there's a goal, like maybe it's Friday, and okay, we're going to do a 10-minute tidy. And after the 10-minute tidy, we're going to jump in the car and we're having, movie night at the movies, and we go to town, or you go see, certain family, or maybe it's a movie night inside and you pop the popcorn and you have like a little movie night at your own house. Maybe it is to play a certain game, or have your own alone time and read your own book. It could be anything, but my point is that there's a treat at the end, or a goal, or something. That's one thing I had to work with, is having a lot of kids. Sometimes you end up having a lot of mess, and it is like a constant pick up, put away, and you feel like you're repeating yourself all the time because you're repeating yourself all the time. And that's just part of it. And when they're smaller, you kind of understand your kid's temperament a little bit. But as they grow, and as you grow to understand them as a person, you can actually divide and conquer even better, because you'll know their temperament and you'll know what they would be more interested in helping you with that needs to be done, not because they want to do it or that you want to do it, but that they want to get it accomplished. And maybe it's a check-off thing. A lot of us are kind of prone to that checklist thing. But like when I don't remember how old the kids were, but eventually, being a stay-at-home mom, I knew those kids well. I knew little points of when they were getting to the point where they might need a break. Like, they don't need any more of whatever situation's going on. They need to handle what's going on with them right now. Or, maybe there'll be a meltdown. Maybe there'll be an upheaval. Who knows? But you get to know them so well by spending the time with them. And one thing I learned on a couple of our kids, this is no negative feedback for them, but I just learned it, and I thought it was very funny how, actually I told my mom one time, it was like, okay, if you call and you need something, call this one if you want it fast, and call this one if you want it right. So it was pretty funny, because it was like, oh man, okay, that's where God put those two together, and that way, there's one that's like a quick, like, get it done, but it doesn't mean it's going to be thorough. It's just going to be done. And the other one is more of the detail oriented, and we'll make sure every little nook and cranny of whatever it was needed to be done. So things like that, learning your temperaments of your children and being able to maybe give them an assignment within the house, because everyone that's in the house is part of the house. So besides cleaning up after ourselves and that sort of thing, sometimes we just need to divide and conquer and then go on about our day and go on to our treat, our books, our movies, family night, going and visit others, going to church, whatever it is that's coming up. And so when the triplets were small, they had to have been about 2 years or so old. And most of the time, everybody contributed, and I would kind of do this assignment thing. Well, one of the things you'll learn about yourself is whether you like it or not. Maybe you absolutely hate any kind of housework at all, but maybe you gravitate toward a certain thing in the house that would be considered housework, that you like this one thing done and it makes you feel better. Well, the one thing for me was like horizontal surfaces. I loved floors. I absolutely loved floors. I don't know why. I didn't want things on floors. I wanted the vacuum. I mean, sweeping wasn't even good enough. I wanted the vacuum, the old school rainbow vacuum with the tank that had the water and the hardwood floor type attachment. I wanted to vacuum the floor. I mean, that made me feel good. Like, I actually love that. So in the sense of like dividing and conquering with the kids, that was one thing I liked to do because I liked how it made me feel in the end. I liked how it looked. It was clean. So, as adults, we can have our favorite task, and we'll learn the kids as they grow maybe what their favorite task is. But back to the triplets. So the triplets were probably around 2, and I was running my rainbow vacuum through the house, and I was vacuuming all the floors, and I had started in the living room, and it was like a little circle at the time. And so, I had the whole living room got done, and I had my little order to what room I went into first, which was usually the living room at that time, because that's where most of the mess was. That's where I started. The mess got done, the floors got vacuumed, and then I worked my way to the front hall, got that done, worked my way to the kitchen and got that done, and then it was the dining room next. And then if I were to continue the circle, there'd be like a little tiny hall and then the living room again, like a circle of walking. And by the time I got to the kitchen, I was not looking in the living room necessarily. You keep up with kids and just see people walking around and that sort of thing, especially when it's louder and you can't hear all the details of noise. And what ended up happening was by the time I got back to the living room, the triplets had gone into the kitchen and opened the cabinet. There wasn't a pantry. It was just some cabinets on the top and the bottom, and I used for pantry goods. And they had opened the cabinet at the bottom, gotten a 5-pound bag of grits. I'm from South Georgia, right? 5-pound bag of grits, taken it through the dining room where I had not gone yet. So they must have caught it when I was in the front hall and going into the kitchen, because I did not see them grab that 5-pound bag of grits. And they go around where I was not. They went around to the living room, dumped the whole 5-pound bag of grits on the floor, and it was carpet, and were having the best time of their 2-year-old lives ever. And I think they had combs, and they were like using it like sand, and they had combs, and they were just playing in it. And when I saw it, it was like, I could not be mad. Like, what do you do now? I mean, I didn't have it then because it was a few years ago. I had to go get the camera, take a picture, and just capture the moment. And I still will bring that picture up. I think it's so funny because I could have just either blown up or just melted away. But I mean, how funny is it that two-ish, maybe a year and a half to 2 years old girls go in where you cannot even see them, get a 5-pound bag of grits and dump it on your clean floor. I don't know how they did it, but they sure had a grand time doing it. And of course I had to take a picture, and I'm glad I did. I don't know what came over me to not just melt, but besides, maybe that was what it was. Maybe it was my heart melting instead of my mind. So I loved the picture. They don't remember it, but I remind them with a picture of how much they helped me clean the house that day. So those are my thoughts on how I learned to tidy, going from tots to teens, and I would take into account their age. Don't assign anything more than 3 things at a time, and make sure it's timed. My favorite times were 10 minutes and 2 minutes, and they still are, even for myself. And I would definitely have the music, and I would definitely have the treat. What's the goal? What are you going to do after this? Because to be honest, even if we get that 10-minute tidy done, we could keep going on a 10-minute tidy somewhere else. So make there be a goal of what is to be expected after this. And it helps everyone. It helps you too. So if you want to make the most of your divine calling as the lady of your home, make sure you're on the email list at thehomesteadmaker.com. And I'll see you next time.